Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, November 17th, 2020, and today we're going to be taking a look at the shift from the 2016 to the 2020 presidential election. And the main story, the main headline here is that Donald Trump has severely underperformed his 2016 margins of victory. Or now we've seen his losses in certain states. Pretty much the entire country as a whole has shifted to the left. While there are certain demographic groups that were shining stars for Donald Trump's performance, that was the only silver lining, really. The rest of it was a big shift to the left, and I mean that in a very literal sense. On your screen, you see the Washington Post's graphic of the change from 2012 to 2016 on the left, which is why you see so much red, and then on the right, the change from 2016 to 2020. So as you can see, in the 2012 to 2016 map, we're going to actually get into our own electoral map in just a moment, but you can see that the shift for Donald Trump came from predominantly this area. While there were some areas that Hillary Clinton expanded on, such as the area of Philadelphia, or if we're talking about Arizona, or even pockets in Georgia, or amongst certain Hispanic populations across the Sun Belt, that's where Hillary Clinton did better than Obama, even in Utah, because Evan McMullin was on the ballot. But in this entire Midwestern region and really this entire quarter of the United States, almost everywhere shifted to the right. Looking at this map, it's very easy to see how Donald Trump did actually win the election. Look at Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Practically every county shifted to the right. Same thing in Iowa, same thing in Ohio. These counties all supported Donald Trump in a way that they hadn't supported Mitt Romney or even John McCain. So Republicans did outstanding in 2016 compared to their 2012 election performance, but I will also say that compared to 2016, the Republicans did not so great, to put it very kindly, for the GOP in this presidential election, because as you can see, based off of the shifts from 2016 to 2020, almost the entire country is blue. Now, there are some regions of the country that are still red, such as New York, because they have yet to count a lot of their absentee ballots. I believe almost 1 million votes outstanding. But if you look, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, while there are some parts that shifted to the right, overall, the state shifted to the left. Look at Georgia. I mean, there's a reason why Georgia went blue. Look at all of that in the northern region of the state, where we see a lot of the population, a lot of what drove Joe Biden to victory. Look at Colorado. That state actually shifted, I believe, nearly double digits in favor of the Democrats. Look at Arizona, flipped from red to blue. So everywhere across the country, no matter where you look, except for states that have outstanding ballots, such as New York or Hispanic regions in Florida and Texas, really outside of there, you don't see much improvement for Donald Trump. You don't see much improvement for the Republicans. In 2016, Hillary Clinton did better amongst certain groups than Barack Obama, but it wasn't enough to overcome the white working class turning away from the Democrats. However, in 2020, Donald Trump did better amongst those same demographic groups that Hillary Clinton did better than Obama, but it wasn't enough to overcome the white working class vote that shifted away from Donald Trump. So I just want you to see the visualization of it. It's a very, very good graphic. It gives you a very good idea of how the country was 4 years ago versus how the country is today. So how did this map turn into this map in just 4 years? Well, things are very simple. Donald Trump is unpopular. COVID-19, economic collapse. A lot of things are hindering Donald Trump, one of 3 presidents in United States history to be impeached. So Donald Trump has a lot of things under his belt that aren't necessarily helping him. They're dragging him down. And when we're going to take a look at the 2020 electoral map that I'm working with, I want to point out that I'm going to be using different margins than usual. Go ahead and check down there to the pinned comment or in the description box. It should give you the way that I'm going to be characterizing some of these states. The way that I'm doing this is based off the shift from 2016. You saw that map. You saw all of that blue on the right. Well, now it's time to actually see on a state-by-state basis. But I want to point out I am using different margins. So how am I using these margins? Well, the reason why I'm doing it is because we don't see too many states actually fitting in my normal margin system. I want to use this one. That way I'm able to utilize all 4 colors and give you a more accurate, more detailed description of how the states shifted. So anything that shifts to the left or right by less than 1%, I consider to be a tilt. Anything between 1 and 3%, I consider to be a lean. So what do these colors mean? This is a tilt. This is a lean. It's a little bit lighter for the blue, and then it gets darker as we progress. 3 to 5% in terms of a shift is likely. So it's a little bit bluer than the lean characterization, but not nearly as solid as the safe column, which is 5% or above. So these are the color system that I'm going to be using. Same thing for the GOP. It's just going to be, of course, in red. Same exact margins. So that's what you need to be taking a look at. Refer back to this. Look in the comments down below. You will see the margins posted there. So let's go ahead and get started with all of the states that I'm going to be characterizing under the tilt Democrat or tilt Republican column. And the reason why I want to start off with tilt, typically I start off with safe, as many of you guys know. It's just because there are very few states in the tilt column, and I just wanted to work backwards this time. I think it gives you a better idea of the more drastic shifts by the time we near the end of the video. So we'll talk through them as we go through each state one by one. The plurality of the states are in the lean Democratic column, which means they shifted between 1 and 3%, which means a marginal increase for Joe Biden, but they're in traditionally Republican states, areas that Donald Trump should have expanded had he either won re-election or did better in really any region in this country besides 2016. But there are some areas where Donald Trump did better and he won by a larger margin, or actually did better than he did in 2016, despite losing the state this time and 4 years ago. So for the tilt Democratic column, there's only one state. I don't think this is too surprising. It's the state of Ohio. It only narrowly, and I mean, I believe by less than 0.1%, shifts in favor of the Democrats. Now, we see estimations from the Ohio Democrats that once all of the ballots are counted, Ohio will be down to a 7 or 6 point margin of victory for Donald Trump, or President Trump, but that is still a very solid margin, despite the election data saying that it would be within 1 or 2%. Ohio is tilt for the Democrats. Now for the Republicans, they have four states that they are going to be okay with. I mean, we still have ballots to count in 2 of these states, so you should probably wait on full results, but I'm making it for the sake of this video. It very well could change. I think it will change, but the state of California, tilt for the Republicans, we're talking a very marginal increase, less than 1%, obviously. The District of Columbia, less than 1% increase. Illinois and Nevada. So all of these states, despite Donald Trump doing better supposedly amongst Latino voters, it wasn't enough to move California or Nevada in any major proportion out of the Democratic column. On top of that, in Illinois and California, we still have outstanding ballots, so don't place your bets too heavily on a Donald Trump increase here compared to 2016. DC probably doesn't have that much outstanding, and also he did increase, Donald Trump being he increased amongst his support of both black men and women, so it's very possible DC is just a marginal increase for the president, but these 4 states are in the tilt Republican column. Now for the lean Democratic column, I'm going to go back to that after we do the lean Republican column, just because of the sheer amount of states in the lean Democratic column. Remember, this is between 1 and 3% of an increase for a specific candidate relative to their party's performance 4 years ago. So for the Republicans, they have Arkansas. And I don't think that, while that may be a surprise just because of its large minority population, you also have to realize that Hillary Clinton very well could have had what many experts call a residual effect, where she had the last name Clinton. She was liked because she was a Clinton. And while that may have been 1-2% of the population, it was enough so that when a Clinton was not on the ballot, the Democratic Party did worse. So Arkansas goes to the president. Not really a prediction, obviously. The election's over, but it's just sort of a shift. The next state, I don't think this one is too surprising. We all saw it in election night. A lot of Democrats were panicking about it. Florida, 29 electoral votes actually moved in favor of Donald Trump. Every other swing state on this map, shifted to Joe Biden except for Florida. This was due to Joe Biden's inability, besides Nevada, which I've already characterized, but this was due to Joe Biden's inability to appeal to Latino voters the same way Hillary Clinton did. He considerably underperformed in a number of counties, while he did do better in larger counties than Hillary Clinton. Miami-Dade, pretty much the entire southern region of the state, really hurt Joe Biden. So the Democrats are definitely going to be dissecting the election results in Florida, where they went wrong, what they can do in the future to make it right and win that state. But it's Florida, 29 electoral votes really hindered the Democrats in an election landslide as they hoped to get. In the state of Hawaii, they actually sent out ballots to everyone. This prompted inactive voters really to actually vote, and that actually helped Donald Trump. A lean margin, lean increase. Mississippi as well. Even with its heavy minority population, it's very possible that Hillary Clinton just did slightly better. That's very interesting to me. I thought that it would be closer, but Mississippi lean for the Republican Party. And the final state, Utah, that's just because Evan McMullin, Gary Johnson, not going to be on the ballot here. These are two alternatives that were never Trump. A bunch of never Trump Republicans voted for back in 2016, if you remember. Evan McClellan, as a third-party candidate, received 21% of the vote in Utah, near Hillary Clinton's margin. Joe Biden did considerably better than Hillary Clinton, so if we compare his percentages versus Hillary's, the map should look a little bit bluer, but Donald Trump still gained more votes and had an overall net gain of around 2%. So that's the lean Republican column. Let's speed run through the lean Democratic column because these are still Republican states. I just want to characterize them so we can get them out of the map. We're going alphabetically. We're going to go pretty quickly. I'll stop around halfway just to discuss. So we have Alabama in the lean Democratic column, Idaho, Iowa, Louisiana, let's see, Maine's 2nd Congressional District, Michigan. Surprisingly, I thought it would be likely, but it wasn't. Missouri, Nebraska's 3rd District, the state of New Jersey, and the state of New Mexico. So I'm not done, but I just wanted to point out, look at some of these states. We see Michigan, which flipped, Iowa, which got slightly closer, Nebraska, which obviously nobody really worries too heavily about. It's the 3rd district. It's very solid for the GOP. In fact, I think it may be the most conservative part of the country, plus 54 margin in 2016, around 53, 52 now. So not much to take away from here. I mean, Michigan obviously was a flip in this election, but New Mexico got bluer despite voting for Hillary by 8 points. We all thought that it could get closer. I thought that it would get actually more so in favor of Joe Biden, which it did, but some Republicans were spending money there, and it had a surprisingly close Senate race. North Carolina shifted to the Democrats by a lean margin. So did North Dakota. Again, this is 1 to 3%, nothing super significant. Pennsylvania, obviously it was significant in Michigan and Pennsylvania, but for the rest of the states, I wouldn't look too deep into it. It's just because Joe Biden, while he did do better, Donald Trump probably lost a bit of support in some of these states. Tennessee, that state goes into the lean Democratic column. Surprisingly, West Virginia and the state of Wisconsin. So there are 3 of these states that really are not like the rest. They were flips from 2016. Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. These 3 states landed in the Joe Biden column despite voting for Donald Trump in 2016. You can take a look here. 2016, they flipped from 2012. 2020, they flipped from 2016. So that was just a surprising election result in 2016. I don't think it was too surprising that they flipped back in 2020. So where does this put the Democratic Party? Well, they should be happy with their performance in the Rust Belt. Pretty much every state here is going to be characterized in blue just because they did better than they did in 2016, which means that they gained support, which is still a pretty good sign for the Democratic Party nationwide. Now, for the likely states, we have 0 Republican likely states. That's the title of this video. You will see why it gets so much better for the Democratic Party. Even though this was not their best campaign performance, I don't think this was their peak. This was still a pretty good campaign performance against a candidate that we have never seen the likes before, except for 2016. While the Democrats did lose in down-ballot races, you cannot deny the fact that Joe Biden did considerably better than a number of other Democrats on the presidential level. And while that may have been because they really did not like Donald Trump, some Republicans really did not like Donald Trump, the point is that Donald Trump underperformed and that Joe Biden did considerably better. Overall, that's a net negative for President Trump. You really couldn't spin it any other way. So Alaska actually is in the likely Democratic column, despite it being likely for the Republicans before. It's actually down to a 10-point margin of victory for Trump. It's possible that with just a few thousand ballots, it actually moves it down into single digits. Alaska, likely for the Democrats in terms of the increase. Arizona flipped from being 4 points for Trump to less than a point for Biden. Obviously, that's likely. Indiana, again, another part of this region. Kentucky, same thing, this quarter of the United States. Montana, Oklahoma, which that one actually threw me off. South Dakota, Texas. This state goes likely for the Democrats. Why? Because Joe Biden did better than 3%. 3% better, more than 3% better, than Hillary Clinton in Texas. So I just wanted to say, Texas, look out for it. 2024, a lot of people on both sides are going to be targeting it heavily, probably going to be one of the most hotly contested swing states. It was a 17-point margin for Romney. It was a 9-point margin for Trump. Then it was a 6-point margin for Trump, 5.7% really, and it's very possible that it is a true swing state in the next election. And it sort of was this time, except the Biden campaign didn't focus that much of their efforts on the state itself. But Texas, likely. Virginia joins the likely column. Actually, it had real possibilities of going into the safe column. It was just, I believe, a 4.7% increase. It just wasn't enough to break up into that safe column. And then Washington. actually moved in favor of the Democratic Party by a likely margin. So here we are. If this was an electoral map, Biden would already have the presidency without California or New York. But obviously, that's just this is not an election prediction. This is just a shifting map. So now we have the safe states for the Democrats and the Republicans. Let's do the one safe Republican state, and it's because the ballots have not been counted. So I want to point that out. New York is safe for the Republicans in terms of the shift just because they have not counted their ballots. If someone mentions that down below, link them to this part of the video just because that is a very important thing to note. It probably won't be safe for the GOP by the time we count everything in that state by any means. That was just the issue of the election officials up there not counting the ballots ahead of time. But that's a whole other issue for a whole other day. Let's go ahead and get into the remaining states. So I'm sure you know now that all of the states remaining are considered to be safe. Colorado. I actually forgot one state. I don't know why I forgot Wyoming, but that was a lean Democratic state. It did not increase for Biden by a safe margin. But there we go. We finished that one. Let's go ahead and move into the safe states. So we have Colorado. We have Connecticut, Delaware, which is Joe Biden's home state, Georgia, Kansas, which surprises me, Maine at large, Maine's 1st congressional district, Maryland, Massachusetts, which is the most Democratic state in the country, Minnesota, Nebraska at large, Nebraska's 1st district, Nebraska's 2nd district. So that actually was pretty surprising. New Hampshire. Well, Nebraska's 2nd district was not surprising. It was a 9-point increase for Democratic support, but Nebraska's 1st definitely threw me for a bit of a loop. Oregon, safe for the Democrats, was likely in 2016. It was a 10-point margin for Hillary Clinton, 16 points for Biden this time. And then we have Rhode Island, and then the final state of Vermont. So this is the map. This is the major takeaway. Joe Biden did considerably better. If you're skipping to the end, by the way, check the comment section down below for the margins. Take a look at those. New York, by the way, has a lot of ballots out. Illinois does as well. California does as well. So we will wait. We will see. It's possible those actually end up being in the Democratic column. But we will, looking at this map, you really cannot draw a conclusion that Donald Trump did better. Looking at the swings, we see the entire country shifting to the left. Take a look at this map. The entire country shifting to the left. While there were some increased displays of support for President Trump in Florida and Utah, there were specific reasons for that. Now, Mississippi and Arkansas were sort of out of the ordinary. I mean, surrounded in a sea of blue, these states are in red. But looking at the maps, Donald Trump's increase was not by anything more, really, outside of New York, which is an anomaly, anything more than 3%. I mean, the rest of these states were within, 0.1 to 3% in terms of an increase for Donald Trump. Biden's increase of support goes all the way up to 10 points in Nebraska's 2nd district. So there were some very clear differences. Joe Biden did considerably better than Hillary Clinton, but also Donald Trump underperformed. Because if this was just a much more polarizing election and the states that voted the same way they did in 2016, with the exception of swing states, just moved away from the opposition party, we would see a lot more red on this map. But the reality of the situation is that Joe Biden did much better than Hillary, and Donald Trump didn't win over voters the same way he did in the past. Look at all of this blue. Look at all of the lean, likely, and safe states. The margins may have been adjusted, but you cannot take away from the fact that some of these states, such as Georgia and Minnesota, which were prime targets for the GOP absolutely in this election, and Nebraska's 2nd district, and Colorado, and New Hampshire, and Maine at large, were all safe for the Democrats, meaning they increased in terms of support by 5 points. Kansas had a competitive Senate race. Texas is going to be a target for Democrats. Arizona flipped. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania flipped. So looking at all of these states, the Democratic Party did considerably better than 4 years ago. But because Donald Trump wasn't able to win over some of these voters in more traditional Republican states, it's very possible that some of these states moved to the right despite the country voting to the left because of how polarized we are and because swing states aren't exactly the best representation of the entire country. That wasn't the situation. The reality of the situation is that Joe Biden swept the map really in terms of his support, and Donald Trump just wasn't able to win over these voters. He didn't have this message that he did back in 2016, which is exactly why he lost the Rust Belt, which is exactly why he lost the election. So major takeaway here, Donald Trump underperformed his 2016 numbers. He was practically on track to being doing very well in this election. Had COVID-19 not entered into the race, we would have had a much closer election. And, 306 to 232 may seem close, but in the words of President Trump and his advisors, it's a landslide. And this defeat was not just on the Biden campaign, winning over voters, but it was Donald Trump losing voters. And that's going to be a message that the GOP is going to be taking home with them for the next 4 years. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch and then a playlist for my 2020 post-election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.